everyone, Heather here with PersephoneReturns.com, and today I am here with a very special guest. His name is Matt Landman. He is an activist and a filmmaker. You might know him already from his film Frankenskies the movie. I'll post a link to that in the description below because if you haven't watched it, you absolutely should. It's one of the best videos I've ever seen on geoengineering and chemtrails, and I highly, highly recommend this movie for those who haven't seen it. But today we're actually going to be talking about the rollout of 5G technology and EMF radiation and how that impacts our health and what we can do to sort of mitigate the effects and to create change in our own local environments and in our own lives. And so without further ado, here's Matt Landman. Hi, Matt.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. And so this is part of our Uranus and Taurus talks. As you all know, I am an astrologer, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the astrology behind what we're doing and why we're doing this. So when we talk about things like electromagnetic frequencies or electricity in general, that has to do with the planet Uranus. Uranus has moved into Taurus. Taurus rules the body, right? It rules our environment. It rules Mother Earth. And so very literally what we have at the transition point between Uranus moving into Taurus right now is the rollout of 5G technology. It's literally the embodiment, right? Electromagnetic frequencies impacting our health and the increased awareness, I think, about electromagnetic frequencies and how they're impacting our health as more and more people start to notice these things and wake up to what's going on around here. And so that's sort of the framework for this talk and why we're bringing this on here. And so Matt, you've been looking into 5G technology. You were recently in Tucson, which I know is an early adopter of the 5G, that it's already rolled out there. There are already towers everywhere. So, talk a little bit about what 5G is, what your experience has been, and kind of where things are headed.
Yeah, thanks, happily. So the way things have been panning out in my life over the past couple years to few years has been that the universe kind of just puts me where I need to be. I learned about smart meters by sleeping 3 feet from one when I moved to this little bungalow in the outskirts of Vancouver, Canada. And had I not experienced it firsthand, I never would have learned, I never would have known. And then when I moved from Vancouver to Arizona to host this recent conference to be the opposition to the normalization launch of geoengineering through this experiment in Tucson, which is unfolding as we speak, I had this May 12th conference down there, and I was going down to Phoenix to have to promote the conference, and then to Tucson. And as I entered these big cities, I learned firsthand that there's some towers being put up, and there's the rollout of this new technology. And come to find out, Arizona is the first state to go statewide with this new 5G tech. So again, right place, right time. I've been learning firsthand. I never thought that frequency would be something that I'd jumped into, just like the geoengineering chemtrail space. I never thought that would be my passion, my life, my mission. But yeah, here I am, and my sequel to my film Frankenskies is all about frequency and 5G.
Oh, wow.
And I've been blessed with some amazing interviews already, learning all about all this stuff. So yeah, here I am. And then the new movie is called Altered, because basically humanity altered is what this new frequency stuff is going to do, unless we learn enough about it and spread the truth and mitigate those impacts.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you're doing another film about this. I'm really excited to see it because this is something that, similar to you, I've experienced in my own life, and that's how I got into it, because I was living in a major city. I had 3 smart meters that I was sleeping next to, a cell phone tower 2 blocks away, and one of those like electricity hubs right above me, and at least 50 Wi-Fi signals, and my health deteriorated pretty rapidly as a result of that. So let's talk a little bit first about EMFs in general and what people tend to experience when they are electrically sensitive or when they are exposed to high volumes of EMF frequency. What are the most common symptoms? What can people what do people experience?
Well, everyone's different, right? And everyone's experience is different. And so there's this saying, if you put a frog into boiling water, it'll jump right out, right? But if you put a frog into water and then you slowly turn it to a boil, it'll just sit there because the slowness of the heating, it doesn't acknowledge it fast enough, you know what I mean? And that's what humans are like. If we're used to living in the country, we're not around the smart meters, we don't have a smartphone, we don't have the Wi-Fi router in our house and all this sort of stuff. And then we hop into an experimental city like Salt Lake City or Tucson or Phoenix, and there's towers and small cell repeater stations on every street lamp. We'll feel it. And it's kind of like this brain fog, anxiety. I experienced an actual kind of shock electricity in my hand from my smartphone after I developed the sensitivity from being right next to the smart meter for so much time. So you can actually start to feel it in your hands if you have a smartphone and you're becoming sensitive. But everyone is different. I just went down to Tucson and interviewed Stephen McGee for my film, and he's done a lot of experiments because he too has suffered from electromagnetic hypersensitivity, and he's written 20 books on that subject, and then also on light diffraction and even relating to the geoengineering and what have you. So he was a really amazing guy to meet. But he experienced it, and I know we can talk about the mitigation strategies later, but he wrote a book on how to relieve the symptoms. And he treated it like it was basically radiation, and through sodium bicarbonate, through baking soda, and ibuprofen, he was able to, because basically what you're suffering from is your blood is thickening up more than the average person from the EMF radiation. So this electromagnetic field, which I'm learning so much about just in even the past recent weeks, when you're in that electromagnetic field, the microwaves, they impact your internal organs in your blood and what have you. And depending on how strong they are and the frequency, and the 5G is actually something totally new, but your blood basically globs and clots, and electromagnetic sensitivity is your blood clotting and globbing up a lot more than the average person, and you suffer symptoms from it. But you can alleviate that with the sodium bicarbonate. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, and everyone's symptoms are different. Some people get nosebleeds, which is horrible, headaches, especially the sleep. Your sleep gets disrupted, and then you get out of your circadian rhythm, and then your brain's not producing this rhythm of the serotonin. And then there's depression. Depression is actually one of the main symptoms. And then there's actually a study out of the National Institute of Health that you can find relating to and I don't mean to be Debbie Downer or anything like that. It is kind of like there's the truth, and then there's protecting yourself and empowering yourself with the truth. So like, don't let it be like a negative thing. Like, empower yourself with positivity of knowing the truth and being able to spread it and protect yourself. But either way, these utility workers who are around this electromagnetic frequency radiation, they're statistically high accounts of suicide because their brains aren't producing melatonin, serotonin, dopamine, because of these EMF fields that they're around so much. It disrupts your brain.
Absolutely, it does. And that is something, I did an interview recently with Dr. Matthew Buckley, who is a holistic doctor who's based out of Austin, Texas. And we spent a good amount of time. He thinks that most chronic illness, including things like anxiety and depression, are related to EMF, frequency exposure, in addition to vaccines and exposure to glyphosate and, GMOs and things like that. So we did talk a great deal about that. And we are electric beings, right? My background is in neuroscience. Like, our brain signals through electricity, our whole body does actually. And so, of course that's going to be impacting us in some sort of way. And so a lot of the research, like you said, points toward cognitive dysfunction, people having concentration issues, depression, ADHD, all of these types of things. And so let's talk a little bit about, so this is with normal EMF frequencies, right? A lot of the research, normal EMF frequencies, like the things that we have in our homes right now, a lot of this research is based off of that. There's a difference, though, between the frequencies that we're being exposed to right now through Wi-Fi and through the cell phone towers, the 3G and 4G, and what they're rolling out with 5G. So explain what the difference is and how this affects us differently.
Happily, before I go into that, especially heart palpitations. I experienced heart palpitations when I first started seeing my hypersensitivity. And I mean, when I'm in or around the smart meters or anything like that, when I'm getting the heart palpitations, I can literally be like, okay, there's a smart meter on the other side of that wall, and I'll go look, and it's just like, so that's one, especially where it's like if you haven't experienced it before, it's like your heart's kind of beating and it's like losing its rhythm for a second. Yeah,
absolutely. That's a common one. And skin irritation too. People don't realize, like, my skin will burn if I'm too close to any of these types of things. So yeah, there are a lot of it varies very widely, like based on the individual
So
person.
exactly. So the 5G technology, and as if we don't have so many things going on as it is, now we've got to worry about the telecom industry. I tell you what. So already there's been a lot of studies about previous cell phone technology, and if you know have it in your bra, you get a tumor right there. And I just watched the movie Generation Zapped that talks about all that, and it's true. The phone companies say you shouldn't have it up to your head. So regardless of the technology you want to use, you should have the wired, not the Bluetooth, the wired going, the earplugs. And those are cool. Just talk to your friends like that. No big deal. And save yourself a tumor in your brain. It's kind of, very simple risk mitigation strategies at this point for longevity of our health. So the previous cell phone technology, 3G, 4G, and all this other frequency technology that we've taken for granted and that we love, our luxurious things, the bunny ears on our old-fashioned TVs, the FM AM radio, the older cell phone technology, these are all big invisible frequency waves. And these waves ride for quite some lengthy distances, okay? And the waves are the size of a building, the size of a football field, they're way bigger than a person. So when these invisible waves go through us, it doesn't impact us. So to pause there, we are beings of light. We're like frequency light beings, okay? And as we like come into matter and do our thing on Earth or whatever, we're here and we don't see this invisible everything. But in reality, we're a harmonized frequency even here. So we've got our heart, we've got our brain, we've even got our organs, and they all are producing a frequency, and all those frequencies harmonize to have this frequency field that we emit, okay? This is science, this is fact. So these big waves from the TVs and what have you, and the 4G technology, they don't interact with our frequency, okay? Because it's not in that same spectrum. But the 5G, it does. And that's where it gets really interesting. The 5G technology was developed through the military, okay? And you talked about your skin heating up. The 5G technology was created for this thing called an active denial system, ADS. And you could look it up. It's like a Hummer with a cell phone tower on it. It's like these new cell phone towers on a Hummer, and they create this frequency fence in a militarized zone where they blast this 1 millimeter wave, and this is a invisible wave the size of 1 millimeter. Okay, no longer the size of a building, bigger than a person. 1 millimeter, which is really, really small. There's 10 millimeters in a centimeter. Okay, so we're talking a fraction of an inch, and these little waves, when they create their active denial system in the military, which this technology is weaponized, militarized technology. It's really fact-based. When they came out with this technology, is to create this frequency fence where if you walk into that zone of invisible frequency, your skin burns so bad that you have to get out of there. So they create these zones where people can't enter, and that technology was first launched, over a decade ago, and then they put it into they tweaked it a little bit so that your skin wouldn't burn, but it would go deeper into your skin and what have you, and you could be scanned. So the body scanners at the airports through the TSA, that's 1 millimeter wave technology, okay? But it doesn't go very far because it's 1 millimeter. All right. So when they're blasting that 1 millimeter wave and you're standing on outside of the body screener, yeah, you're getting some radiation, but it doesn't go that far. And there's actually studies of TSA employee pockets when they're working next to those things, they're getting cancer. Okay. So these are really important studies to consider. I mean, when you're maybe on the fence or trying to impact your local councils and what have you, because all this stuff is coming, and even just standing up and speaking, like I went and spoke to my Sedona, Arizona, when they had the meeting on the towers rolling out. And I came and just said my piece about the technology. And the fact of the technology is that it's so small that it interferes with our biological systems. These 1 millimeter waves, they literally impact cells. They cause cell division. They bifurcate cells. They cause your cells to split, and then those cells can mutate and cause cancer and what have you. They're especially impacted. They especially impact fetuses and newborns, and when you're a developing child in your mommy's tummy, you're a millimeter in size. Okay, you're really small, And when those 1 millimeter waves hit you, it's really bad and you don't get born. You know what I mean? So the next generation, if they're exposed to this and we don't have protective gear for pregnant women, we won't have a next generation. All right. And then that's part of this transhumanism push. And the headline will be "Live Forever to Save Humanity," and they'll be pushing this kind of cyborg thing because of the technology that they created to sterilize humanity. But people would be so blind, for lack of a better word, to not see the truth as it comes. So there's this 1 millimeter wave. Well, how is it going to get everywhere if it doesn't go far, because it can't ride like all of the other big waves? Well, they have to put cell tower repeater stations. They call them small cells. So in Sedona, Arizona, there's one tower in downtown. There's like a couple on the mountain near the airport. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's 2 or 3 towers in the entire town, but they're not near everybody. And that's it. That's the technology. I can get cell phone service just about everywhere in my small town. They want to put in 25 giant new towers.
25?
And then hundreds. Yes. And then hundreds and hundreds of small cell towers, which means these towers that are 4 feet tall or 2 feet tall, and they're these repeater cell towers. Like they take the signal and they boost it and shoot it, and it's directional. It's like this little invisible laser beam of 1 millimeter laser wave, just pew, right? But you can't see it, and if it hits you, it absorbs in your skin. It doesn't bounce off you and go somewhere else. If it hits you, it absorbs and it goes into your skin. It doesn't burn you, because then people will be like, hey, it's burning me. It just goes, they've tweaked it a little bit so that it goes into your skin about 1 centimeter deep. And it's going to cause a lot of human health impacts, a lot of depression and stuff. And also your pineal gland sees it as bright light. Yeah. So this ebb and flow of night and dark, of day and light, where you have your circadian rhythm in your cycle, your brain's going to think you're in bright light all the time. That's why you should put your phone on airplane mode when you can, unplug your Wi-Fi at night, because these invisible microwaves, your brain thinks you're in bright light still. So there's going to be small cell towers every 3 homes. Okay. And then the 5G technology actually has these new smartphones as small cell towers. So the new 5G phones will take the signal and send it out as well. Those are repeater stations. So your phone will no longer just be a receiver. It'll be a transmitter of microwave frequencies. It's a very complex, but also very rudimentary. It's just shooting these invisible lasers that can only go so far, and they'll have to be everywhere. And it's federally mandated to roll out nationwide. And the most opposition has come out of California. So California local municipalities have said, no, I don't want a cell tower right in front of my house. No, I don't want a small cell tower on top of my house or in front of my house. We can't just experiment on the public. And then there's studies like these. Ukraine and Russia studied this technology in the 80s, okay? And they decided not to launch it because it's harmful to human health. So I could keep on going and going and going. So, but ultimately, I think I've done a pretty good job. It's a much smaller wave, and in that frequency, it impacts us because we're in that same frequency.
Absolutely, yes. And I mean, that's kind of alarming to even think about in such a small, because I live just outside of Sedona. That's like where we met, was in Sedona. And having 25 large towers, not even thinking about the hundreds of small towers, that to me is alarming in such a small space. In the city I live in right now, there's about 3 on top of a mountain. That's it. I don't get cell phone service in my house. I don't want it, right? So that, for people that are trying to get away from this technology, because there are many, many people who are actively, engaged in removing themselves from these frequencies, it's almost as if there's going to be nowhere to hide. And so that to me is the part that's most alarming. And so also I was wondering, so are they emitting these frequencies from like people's Wi-Fi routers? Because I'm seeing people's Wi-Fi come up with like their Wi-Fi signal and then 5G when I'm getting other people's Wi-Fi showing up on my computer.
So like I said about the frog boiling in the water, if they just came in and put in these huge towers and flipped the switch, people would be getting dizzy and having horrible headaches and having heart attacks and having nosebleeds, and it would be obvious. So they first started with the Wi-Fi signals having that that technology, and then also the smart meters. So I don't think that they've completely turned on the entire system. But the smart meter, which people are having on all their homes, which if you don't know about it, there was this analog meter where the meter person would come and check your power usage once a month. But now you have a digital meter on your home that emits a microwave signal, okay, similar to that 1 millimeter wave. It's kind of priming us kind of thing. And it blasts a signal so strong that it can go 30 miles. And then there's trucks that come through and they read the signal, and those emit a massive EMF frequency. So we're getting hit with all these invisible things that we never even knew to even research until, you know, maybe they watch your show or something like that. So the smart guards, once you learn about it, you can call and debate with the utility company, and then some of them will come and do it for a very minor fee and give you the old meter back. Some of them will charge you a lot more. In Sedona, the rate that they were going to charge me for electricity was so much more that I just took it into my own hands and got a stainless steel wireless mesh smart meter guard, which you can get online for really cheap. And then as long as it's grounded, it's proven. Like I have my EMF radiation meter, which if you're really curious about all this, you can get the meter. You can see what your phone's putting off. You can see what your Wi-Fi router's putting off. You can literally measure these things. This isn't hocus pocus conspiratorial stuff. You know, sometimes trying to convince people that geoengineering is going on, even with patents and paperwork and what have you, it's kind of hard. But this one, you've got a meter and it's tangible. And, you know, there's a lot of things that are happening to the next generation. The children are especially impacted. Let's think about this. You and I and a lot of your listeners, we were born into a world without this technology. Yeah. When we were babies, when we were developing in our mommy's tummies, when we were 1 year old, 2 years old, when we were developing, when our cells were splitting and we were, you know, growing as human beings, we didn't have this tech. You know, these kids that are coming into it, and now they've got schools that are all electrical, and all this dirty electricity. Believe me, even blue light I'm learning about. You need to put blue light filters on your phone and your computer, because the blue light damages the back of your retina, and in 40 years we're going to have this wave of just blindness. Like, this technology has not been adequately tested on. Okay, so what was the question? Sorry.
Oh my goodness, I don't even remember now, but I like where you're going with this, because a lot of this hasn't been tested, and the testing, because my background is in research. For those, I don't know if I mentioned this on the film or before we were talking, but my background is in clinical psychology. I have a master's degree, and I was studying to become a research scientist. I was going to go on to get my PhD in behavioral neuroscience. And so, you know, I look at the research that's been done, and I know how to critically evaluate peer-reviewed research. And a lot of the studies that have been done are not well-done studies. And the ones that conclusively tell you that this technology is safe, those are the worst studies in terms of the designs and the way that the study, like, they intentionally made they designed the study so that way it would read in their favor, right? And so
yeah, I'd love to actually add to that. And then I remember your last question. It was about the 5G routers and stuff. Yes, okay. they're slowly getting us online with that technology, but it's not all in place. But we're being primed. You know, it's a priming. And when it says 5G on the router, you can pick which one, and both of those are primers. Like, they haven't completely turned it up, turned it on quite yet. It'll be a complete frequency fence over the entire state of Arizona when it's completely turned on. You know, so they cannot just turn it on all at once. And we were even talking off camera about how you're used to living in the country, and you went to Salt Lake City and you could feel it. It's just like that. Those people there, they've been slowly adjusting to it. So that's important, what you just said about discernment. Mm-hmm. And now you don't need a college degree and it helps, it does. But discernment is literally under attack. We're in a day and age where truth is literally under attack. So I experience it every which way. Like, my life as an activist, I encounter this stuff. I do a daily truth every day on my website, actualactivist.com. It's a daily blog, and I've got over 1,000 people that come to the website every single day to check out this daily blog. And it's just an alternative to social media because of all of the nonsense, especially the censorship. But there's so much nonsense with this CIA tools that, I mean, Facebook and Instagram are owned by the same, you know, it's ridiculous. But as I'm doing this research every single day and looking up different things such as the GMO corn and glyphosate and atrazine, this hormone disruptor herbicide and things like that, I've got a really good memory. Okay. I also went to school. I went to Virginia Tech, and then I went to Cal State, Humboldt in Northern California, got a master's in business administration focused in strategic sustainability, graduated top of my class, got a film degree. And like, I've been able to research, and I can see, and I've noticed, and I've got a really good memory. Things that I've been looking up, things that I have researched in the past couple years, the literal opposite comes up now. The literal opposite of things. So literally last year I would look up what's 1 + 1, and it would say 2. This year I look it up, and the whole front thing on the Google, every one says 1 + 1 = 3. And I'm like, are you kidding? Things are shifting that fast that we have to take discernment in our own hands. Otherwise, we're just going to not know what to think. So when I do my grassroots activism, I'm always out there passing out these flyers. I got this new flyer for my film, Frankenskies. Nice. It's really gentle on this side, talking about what geoengineering is and talking about my websites. But then this is my movie cover for my movie, Frankenskies. But I'm out there, I go to festivals or farmers markets or grocery store or whatever, and I'm just like, hey, do you know about this kind of thing? And when I get to go and talking with the younger generations, they sidestep truth. And I've noticed that it's because of this attack on discernment and they say, well, I've looked it up and there's both sides of every story. How am I supposed to know? I wasn't there, And I get like to things like, well, what about this or what about that? And every single thing there's two sides to the story. Like I look it up on the internet, and how am I supposed to know? And it's like, look, Coca-Cola made that study saying Coca-Cola is more hydrating than water. Right? It's a literal study, okay, by Coca-Cola that says, well, it's an attack on water, right? And it says that Coke is more hydrating, and it says because when the people drank it, they would like absorb more of the Coke, and they'd pee out more water. And it's just like, that's by a study by the Coca-Cola company. And that's the top Google searches when you ask about Coca-Cola health impacts and stuff like that. It's like everything is so controlled, and that people are kind of, they don't know. They just want to live their lives, So the discernment is so important to harness, and really it comes down to intangible things like trusting your heart, trusting your gut, and being able to see through the muck. I mean, I could have a million analogies or metaphors, but literally it's street smarts. When you learn how to like see through it all, it's going to help a lot, because there's an attack on truth. There's a misinformation campaign for all of it, especially this 5G. I mean, self-driving cars. Everyone wants to download their stuff faster. It's like they're going to put a freaking tower in your front yard. You don't want that. So, but yeah, the studies on the flip side, which the telecom industry and the powers that be, and then it really gets to a point where I start to question, are they just greedy, or is this even deeper? Because messing with the frequency that we're all in, it gets to be kind of a deeper, more spiritual kind of like the future of humanity, the evolution of humanity is kind of being hijacked, and our true intention, our true purpose is kind of being messed with. So at what point are we going to begin to, there's this quote that I like to say, you can take truth as the authority, or you can take authority as the truth. It's completely up to you. The truth is there, and the truth is self-evident. So, when Coca-Cola is saying, drink Coca-Cola, not water, it's like, we got to think about that for a minute. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're left to learn about risk mitigation. It's like, I'm not asking everyone to team up and go to city council and to prevent the towers from being put up. I mean, if one's coming up in your front yard, maybe you can get vocal and tell people through a petition or what have you. Being an activist doesn't mean you have to be on the front line. Just talking to one person. Imagine if every single person talked to one person and convinced them to talk to one person. We could spread truth like wildfire, any truth, and it wouldn't be that difficult. Even up against a controlled media, even against controlled bank. I mean, all this money that the powers that be that control the knowledge, they have nearly unlimited resources, except we have ourselves, and we have our power and our hearts and our consciousness, and like we have numbers and we have everyone, we have so much more, but it seems a little daunting at first. So I encourage people to speak their truth and to spread the word and to help out, man. Like if you have a pregnant friend and they're putting up cell towers everywhere, you should tell them that there's EMF protective clothing and that there's ways to, if they've got a tablet sitting on their belly, it's like maybe just a little gentle coercion. And I know it's tough. Hey, trust me. I'm trying to tell people that there's chemtrails, right? That's tough enough as it is.
Yeah.
But and then questioning somebody's parenting strategies before they're even a mom, by saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't have your phone on your belly and stuff like that. But there's a gentle way to go about any of it. There's a very gentle way to go about all of it. And it's just about meeting people where they're at. So just a little tip on bringing it together, because you wouldn't believe how rewarding it is to save someone's something, because people will acknowledge it later on down the road and they'll say, wow, you really impacted me, and I might have reacted or not reacted, but thank you for that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Thomas Jefferson said, if you have the ability to help someone in need, you have the responsibility.
Absolutely. Yes. I really like that. And, it is difficult. There is a lot of misinformation out there. And I think that the younger generations, I have noticed, have, first off, they're a little bit more confused, but they're also very attached to their technology. So if you say something like, that Wi-Fi, it might not be so good for you, or that cell phone, right up against your head, maybe you shouldn't do that. They're going to be a little bit more defensive about it because they grew up with that. They're conditioned to use all these devices, where I've noticed the older generations, as backwards as it sounds, because usually we think the younger generations are more open-minded and, they're going to be the ones that help everything, to change in the future. The older generations are the ones that are skeptical of this technology and that are more open to hearing, the information. So yeah, I think that that's kind of an interesting thing that's going on there with that. So we started talking a little bit about like solutions and things that we can do. So some people are familiar with some of the, more basic things like hardwiring your computer instead of using Wi-Fi, turning off your cell phone at night, turning off your Wi-Fi at night. But for those who, maybe want to take it a step further, or maybe for those who aren't familiar, what are the top sort of like 5 or 10 things you would recommend that people can do in their own homes to keep themselves and their families more safe?
Thank you for asking that. So this is how I'm plugged into the internet right now.
Me too.
And that's really cool. So it's really fast and friendly. And I know it's so convenient to take your computer to the toilet or whatever, like before your bed or whatever you like to do. But look, we're talking about your longevity, and while the technology is up for, while it's questionable, it's important. It's important. And you'll learn, you don't have to be plugged in all the time. Oh my gosh. I was thinking about when there was when people went from not having light bulbs in their house to having light bulbs. Okay. Humanity is really young right now. You don't need Wi-Fi, especially if you've got children. You can have a desk, you can have a couple computers, you can have internet time. Your computer is flashing, it's pulsing at a certain pace that messes with your neurological system and what have you. Like kids at a certain age, they should not be on those devices. I mean, they should go outside and play. I don't care if it's raining, there's stuff to do, So avoid Disney also. Disney's brainwashing the youth. But either way. So I just did a video on airplane mode. I put it on Facebook and it went around pretty well. If you can put your phone on airplane mode or not have it with you while you're sleeping, that's huge. And when I was younger, I'd fall asleep talking to my girlfriend or something and have the phone on my head all night long. But now I've learned, and the technology is getting different. So it's important to just, when you're sleeping, unplug the Wi-Fi if you can. One thing that's really interesting that I learned just the other day, through just doing some experiments and what have you, is it's not as bad to have your Wi-Fi on as it is to connect the computer to the Wi-Fi. So if I'm in the other room and the router's on, it's picking, the meter's picking up maybe a teeny little bit because there's a router on in the other room. But once I connect with my computer, it creates an electromagnetic field. It creates a huge field that blasts out of the computer into me and then goes and finds that router and creates a cloud from A to B. It's wild. So really disconnecting the Wi-Fi, at least at night, little baby steps. And yeah, you might not feel it. It's because cancer takes a while. Your cells aren't, like this technology splits DNA. You got to think about these things. So also there is, if you live in a highly radiated environment, if there's a million Wi-Fi signals popping up, you can get paint. There's a lot of strategies. There's a lot of stuff. There's electromagnetic sensitive people out there, and finding what they do is really going to be your already proven means of safety, because they can feel it. They can feel it like immediately. So there's paint that you can paint your walls with that bounces the frequency back. I especially encourage people to address the smart meter. Okay, the smart meter goes from nothing to over the limit every 10 seconds or 30 seconds. It depends on your meter, but those things are blasting through your house and through you. And, all of a sudden you feel anxious or you have a heart palpitation. It's probably because of that. And there's, like I said, smart meter guards you can get, really simple. You can find them online for anywhere from $60 to $100. Okay. There's also clothing. I'm going to get into this line of clothing because I really want to help, especially the pregnant women. I've been learning about copper-lined clothing and silver-lined clothing. Mm-hmm. The copper and the silver, I've done tests and what have you, the frequency bounces right off of it. Even when I'm in Tucson, I'm near a massive tower, the frequency bounces right off of the silver-lined and copper-lined clothing. And you can find, there's a lot of websites, EMFsolutions.com, I believe, is one. And especially, there's been a lot of research out of Europe, because like France, for instance, they took the Wi-Fi out of the schools. They said, whoa, this is impacting the children. All these studies, France is a big country, and there's no Wi-Fi in the elementary schools. At least I know that.
Israel too.
Yeah, Israel knows. They know because they see it. There's science-based evidence on how it impacts the human body. So I would advise. So also what this does is something to mention is when you're in this EMF field, it messes with your blood-brain barrier. It actually makes it leak and makes it porous. And so when you have metals in your body, which we're exposed to it through the aerosols, the chemtrails, we're exposed to it through the foods that we eat. If you have aluminum deodorant, or sunscreen, we've got some of these metals in our body, but they're not necessarily going into our brains and causing dementia, Alzheimer's, and these, really messed up impacts. But when we're in an EMF field, the blood-brain barrier gets impacted, and then they can leak in. Also, if you're ingesting fluoride in your tap water, fluoride in your toothpaste, fluoride at the dentist, that escorts aluminum and other heavy metals past the blood-brain barrier. So the fluoride connection is really important to touch upon. That's why on my website, actualactivists.com, I talk about fluoride, GMO, vaccines, and chemtrails, all 4 topics I think are all truth, and everyone needs to at least know about those to know that we're under attack, and it's okay because we can totally protect ourselves from it, because truth is a frequency. Once you start writing on that frequency of truth, all these other truths become self-evident, but also it's empowering and invigorating and inspiring to just know, like knowledge of truth and understanding of it all. It's really powerful and protective. So yeah, there's the clothing, there's the paint, there's the getting a meter and checking out your house and what have you, the hard line. And then alkalinizing your body and protecting yourself from the radiation that's building up with activated charcoal, and also, like I said, baking soda. It's amazing what alkalinizing your body can do. Dr. Sebi, he passed away because of his efforts, but he was curing everything with alkaline diet, HIV, everything. And you can do it too. Just get alkaline with baking soda, or alkaline fruits and vegetables and herbs and what have you. Peanut butter is acidic, for instance. And in an acidic environment, bad things can thrive, like fungus and virus and all that stuff. But it also helps with the radiation detox, just to learn about that. So I advise that. And then, of course, support activists and what have you. I'm making a movie. When that one comes out, help get the word around, and then find some information that resonates with you. I just bought the website 5gtruth.com. It's not up and running, but there's all sorts of websites out there. 5G Facts is one. But if you go to my website, actualactivists.com, there's a lot of EMF stuff on there and 5G and stuff. If you just find one link that you really resonate with and kind of pick and learn a little bit here and there, and then you have a resource to share around. It's just that easy. But it's baby steps, and I know it feels like that we're up against a lot, but we're really not once the collective learns. And it's like you could literally be sitting next to the person that brings it to the mayor and changes your city, or the next Malcolm X that really does some change, or whatever, or someone who's about to have a baby, and you could actually help them just by bringing that nudge, just by planting that seed. It doesn't have to be extreme.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are a lot of really awesome, different resources out there for helping people, especially because so many people are EMF sensitive. I think it was like in 2010, it might have even been earlier than that. They estimated about 10% of the population was sensitive to EMFs at some degree. And then we're now in 2018, 8 years later, with way more frequencies. So I'm sure this is affecting a much larger portion of the population. So more and more people are figuring out how to combat this, because we need to be able to live in normal life, right? We need to be able to engage with society to a certain extent. And so yeah, the stuff is out there. The one thing I did want to ask you about that I kind of forgot about before was what you know at this point about the environmental impact, especially the impact on animal and plant life. Because one of the things that always is interesting to me is, I don't know if you've ever seen these diagrams with like the insects and their antennas, and how our antennas that we use to pick up on these frequencies are designed based on the antennas of different insects and insect life. And so they're picking up on these frequencies with their antennas, and then we have certain things going on like bee colony collapse and monarch butterflies going extinct. So I was wondering if you knew about anything, or just any interesting information about this and what's going on, and how 5G might be impacting this a little bit more so.
Yeah, I definitely have found studies relating to the impacts that it has had on the insects, which at that size of a wave, it does. It impacts all of the insects. The bees especially are very sensitive. So when I first started getting going on the smart meter thing, I was posting a lot of information about that. And this couple in Utah reached out to me and actually had me come to their town to talk to their town about Frankenskies and the smart meters and what have you. And they showed me their story about when this smart meter was put into their house. On the other side of the wall from the smart meter, inside their safe, all of this mold had started to grow. And they lived there for decades. No mold had ever grown. And then when they got the smart meter guard, the mold went away. In a high EMF frequency environment, mold proliferates, fungus proliferates. So if you've got yeast issues, what do they call the yeast?
Candida?
If you've got candida, if you've got candida, then addressing the EMF is especially important. So fungus and bacteria grows for one. And then also, the bees and the bugs are totally impacted. So as shepherds of not just our world, but all of and then also birds get impacted by it too. I mean, everything is impacted by all of this. And it's the thing about it is it's silent and it's quiet, it's invisible, but the impacts will be tangible and quick. And then, that everyone's going to be denying that it's the elephant in the room. So it's up to us to bring that truth forward. It's just that much more important.
Absolutely. All right. Well, so I think that this is a really important topic. I'm really glad that you came on here and that we get to share this with my audience. Do you have any final thoughts or anything that you want to add, anything super important that you want to say, or just kind of sign us off?
I'd encourage people to check out my websites, frankenskiesthemovie.com. And on there, I've got various presentations on Frankenskies, on geoengineering, on chemtrails. And then also all of the different truth stuff from EMF to geoengineering to GMOs on my website, actualactivists.com. But seriously, I want people to know that your town council, you have a city council. Everyone has a town. And they'll put on the ballot different things and different propositions. And you can go and speak. As a citizen, you can go and say your 2 cents. And I know not everyone's as eloquent as other people, and maybe you don't feel confident, but just bringing in one study about some of this, or something about the impacts, or just a story, or just your concern, or just questioning what's going to happen, and is there going to be risk mitigation strategies for people that are impacted by this, or what about electro hypersensitivity, and do you know about this? Just bringing it and having the conversation start, it's so much more powerful than you could ever imagine. right? You plant this seed, you come back even a year later, and an avalanche of information has unfolded from that. And you did that. So never underestimate the power of your voice. You know, it's so important to be confident in your ability as a being to do something. You know, the forces that be, they don't want you to think that you're powerful enough to do anything, you know, and that's like the exact opposite of what's going on. They are so full of fear that we will finally come together, and this is our opportunity to set aside every single difference and say, hey, I'm a human and I care about what's going on here. And also you're killing the bugs, and that's not cool. You know what I mean? So with that being said, and then for sure consider, oh yeah, I went back to a flip phone. Don't worry about what your friends think. I mean, like, part of the truth and part of the awakening to truth is stepping out of your comfort zone and being like, I don't care what my peers think. I don't care what these people think. And once you start resonating on this other frequency, your vibe attracts your tribe. Like, seriously, like, don't be afraid of losing friends. And if they are going to care that you got a flip phone, then they're not your friends anyways. You know what I'm saying? I did experiments on my flip phone. It's not putting off any microwave radiation. I can talk on it just the same. I can text on it just the same. And it's like, come on, I was really excited to get that flip phone 10 years ago. So why can't I just take a step back and be thankful for what I've got? You know, like those people that got light bulbs in their house, you think that they were like, you know, they were thankful,
Yeah.
right? They were thankful for one light bulb in that house, right? Do you think that they got that light bulb and then they're like, I want 50 light bulbs. I want to light up the whole street, you know, maybe, but whatever. I got analogies for everything. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. And it's been really cool to meet you. And I'd love to talk about my chart someday. I was actually doing a little research on it. Pretty excited about learning what what an ascending moon or whatever it is and stuff like that. So you're cool, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for those who are wondering, Matt is a double Scorpio sun and rising. So that's where he gets his intensity, right? And his sharpness and his ability to do the research and to really get to the bottom of things. And so that really serves you in the activism that you're doing and the way that you convey the information. But we'll do that sometime. We'll get together again and talk about it in private, so everyone doesn't have to hear about your chart. But thank you so much for coming on here. I'd love to have you on again to talk about chemtrails, geoengineering, or whatever it is that you're working on in the future. And if you want to visit Matt's website, I'm going to post the link below and the link to Frankenskies, the movie. And also I found your YouTube channel. I'm going to post that link below as well. And yeah, so thank you so much.
Cool. And thank you so much. And follow me on Facebook.
Yeah, and find him on Facebook. He posts a lot of good stuff. All right, bye everyone. Thank you.